We came here every Saturday that Carlton played a home game. We used to go to away games, except my dad was always reluctant to go to Footscray or Hawthorn because it was a long way from Preston. You forget that how much people lived in their own communities at that time. So every weekend it was to Carlton at Princes Park on the Saturday, to the Preston Football Club on a Sunday afternoon, and that was, was a big part of our life. So I recall we were sitting in the southern stand on the half-forward flank on the lower level of the southern stand, and at that time, because of the ground and the lack of stands, the wind used to swirl around, so it became very difficult. It was a very windy day. Oh, that's what I recall. I don't know how windy it was, but I do recall it was a very, very windy day, and Carlton kicked inaccurately. And at half-time, we were feeling kind of reasonably confident because we'd had a good second quarter, an even first quarter, good second quarter. And by the time the third quarter came, Carlton had, Essendon caught up a little bit, and they weren't far behind, probably only a few points behind it at three-quarter time. And that last quarter, if I recall correctly, Carlton was kicking towards the Jolimont end, I think that day, at that time, and just sitting there thinking, why can't they kick a goal? Because they didn't kick a goal in the last quarter. And in fact, I'm not even sure. I know that Carlton kicked less goals than Essendon, and I'm not sure if that's a record, that the grand final winning team has actually kicked less goals than the opposition. So, I mean, afterwards we were incredibly excited, obviously, to win the grand final, but also it wasn't the game that we really wanted it to be. The game that we wanted it to be was the game that we played in the second semi-final, when we played very good slick football. But the grand final game itself isn't a particularly good game to watch. The result's great, but it wasn't one of those masterclasses of Australian football. At 68, it was not just that we'd waited a long time, but we'd seen now 4 years of growth in the club, and the social club was built and all of the other things. So it was a defining moment for a lot of supporters at that time, and 21 years seemed a long time. And I suppose the other part of it was that the 21 years went back to the war, and the war also is a defining moment, in history. And a lot of things we often talk about pre-war, post-war, and I think that was another kind of element. Carlton didn't have a premiership apart from 47. All of their premierships were kind of pre-war, and that was kind of an interesting, as I reflect on it, an interesting kind of issue, for us at 68. It's been an important part of my family. My own kids, my nieces and nephews, we still go to the football together as family, so it's a connection that way. We catch up at the footy, we'll catch up and have a drink after the footy, before the footy. It's still, I still identify with the club. I identify as a young boy with I've still got my first footy jumper, and my son's got his first football jumper. We keep those kinds of, the memorabilia. I've got my WEG poster from 68, for example. So all of those build up a history in you, which is part of your life.